today's episode of The Journey. We're going to take another road trip, and we're going to head further south than we already are. We're going to go to Middle Georgia, and we're going to have Ken Parker with us today. And Ken is a fire specialist for the Georgia Forestry Commission, so he takes care of all the fire stuff. We're going to be diving in a little bit deeper to the Bavarian Hound, which Jeremy and I talked about a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago. Ken has got the inside scoop, and this is so interesting to me since I'm training some of these dogs, which Ken and I talked about. We're doing the Bavarian Hound. We're going to let Ken tell us about that and how that coincides with the Bavarian. So, guys, you deer hunters, you blood trackers, anybody that's tracking wounded game, you are going to enjoy this episode. Ken, how are things down in the South today?
Hi, Heath. We're doing good. Nice and sunny today. Expecting a little rain. So just getting a little things tied up before the rain shows up. But thank you for having us on today.
Yeah, well, I bet the rain in your field of work is a good thing.
Yeah, as a fire specialist with Georgia Forestry Commission, yeah, I mean, the rain is always good. It keeps the fires down. Doesn't allow us to do a lot of prescribed burning, but when it's rainy, it allows me a lot of time to take off and work the dogs and get out. So I'm appreciative of the rain.
Yeah. Usually August, which I know we're into September now, but August here is normally really, really dry. Of course, our training season comes in for bear, our chase season, and it's usually pretty difficult for us because of just the environmental conditions and the dry weather. This year has been completely opposite. We have had thunderstorms and we've had rain, if not daily, every couple of days, and we've had some severe storms over the past couple of weeks. It's knocked power and everything out. So August has been a little different for us this year.
Yeah, I mean, it is for us. Normally we're dry this time of the year. Things are already getting a few fires, and makes it tough working the dogs in the dry conditions. But this year it's been really wet and really good conditions for working.
Yep.
Both in person and the dogs.
I'm sure y'all's humidity is twice as bad as ours, but it's enough to make somebody want to crawl up in the truck and get an air condition here. So, Ken, tell us, you told us what you do. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and tell us how you got into the Bavarian Hounds.
Thank you. I've been in the fire service for 30 years, and that's kept me in the outdoors, and I've always been in the outdoors. Dad's had me hunting by the time I was 12 years old, and killed my first deer at 14. So, it's just been a lifelong passion of mine to be outside. And I was always the one that did the tracking. I mean, I just had the better eyes and stuff. So, I did all the tracking when Dad and I were hunting. And, once I moved off, Dad needed a way to track to recover his deer. And he started messing around with a few different dogs. And his first one was a blackmouth cur. And, this was, 35 years ago. And it was before blood trailing really got in as big as it is now. There really wasn't the groups to support you and learn. And we really didn't know. And so the blackmouth cur, JJ, he just, it just really didn't work out. It was too high strung. We didn't know picking of the dog, what kind of dog we really needed, and the temperament. And so the first Bavarian we got was from Norway. Tigger was his name, and he actually he was from Norway with breeding out of Germany. And we did some success with him, and really, we're starting to learn. And a couple of years after Dad did that, he got 3 Bavarians from Poland, and he kept one, I got one, and he imported the other one for somebody else in Florida. And that's really where my journey started. I just dove head first into it. I mean, it's for those that are just getting started. Oh, what a journey you're in for. For those that are into blood trailing, you know what I mean. It turns into a passion, and that's where I'm at now. Is I'm fully engulfed in this. This is what I do. I go out and shoot my 1 or 2 deer and put them in the freezer, and then I'm tracking for hunters. But once I got my dog, I started looking around to what can I do? How can I learn? And I reached out to John GNA and up in New York, and John, introduced me to the DD, the Vernon Dutch Draw-Tar Club, and I started training with those. And during that, while I was doing that, I had the opportunity to meet a German judge while we were testing, and I was doing a 20-hour test, and he asked me about what my goals were for the dog and for the breed, and I told him. And he went back to Germany. He said, "Well, I'm good friends with several of the board members for the BGS, and that's the correct. You'll see sometimes the Bavarians are called BMH, Bavarian Mountain Hounds, but the true is BGS. That's the true acronym for them. And so what happened is he went back to Germany, and within just like a year, after a few emails back and forth, I was in Germany meeting with the club. And next thing I know, we've got a breed club set up. I'm the chairman of the group here in the United States. I'm the only American judge. Whenever we have tests, we have to bring judges in. So once the ball got rolling, it really took off. I had initially with my first Bavarian meeting with John, I was part of the foundation group for United Blood Trackers and was a board member for many years until I stepped down to focus on the Bavarians. And so since then, we're slowly growing. We're all about protecting the breed. We've only had 3 litters in 12 years, and that's due to some of the restrictions that we've had. And now due to COVID, we haven't had judges over here. So, that kind of brings you up to where we're at. I've been, trying to grow this group and trying to protect the dog at the same time.
So, yeah, I want to follow up right there, but I want to go back to your childhood. When you said you started hunting about 10 or 12, what was your, what were you hunting? Was it squirrels, rabbits? Was it deer? I mean, what was your game of choice back then?
It was squirrel and deer.
Squirrel and deer. Yeah. I think that's kind of how we all start.
Right. Yeah. I followed that around for many a time. Well, dove field for many years. I was the retriever until I was old enough to actually shoot a gun. But then it was mostly squirrels and deer.
Right. And when your dad started messing with the blackmouth curs, was that a common dog in your area at that time?
No, really. I'm not sure how he even came up with the blackmouth cur. It was a grand champion. It was out of Grand Champion Squirrel Dogs out of Mississippi, and so it was a big runner. And again, like I said, we didn't know what we needed for blood trailing, and come to find out that high energy, high drive dog was not what we needed, especially, and there's a lot of guys that use blackmouth curs and curs to great success. Being our first dog, that was not the dog for us. It just was too high energy, and we also just didn't know the proper training techniques to focus the dog, and that has come a long way since we started.
Yeah, I would say so. And you're telling me little intricate details that I'm picking up, like the high energy, for tracking. And I know a lot of our guys out west, they want a dog that's very slow and methodical and doesn't miss turns and, is able to pick up those loses and stuff. So, I mean, I can visualize kind of what you're saying when you're talking about that. So, go ahead.
Well, Heath, on that, there are aspects of tracking that in some places you have to be on lead and some places you can be off lead. A location where you can have an off lead dog, a big runner like that that's going to cover some ground is great, because there are, even though I'm in a state, Georgia, you can work off lead.
Mm-hmm.
My location being around a lot of urban areas, I don't let my dogs off lead very seldom do I let them off lead, just because of the likelihood of being on somebody else's property, crossing a road, just too many dangers out there. But in South Georgia, where there's 1,000-acre, farms, and the next farm is 1,000 acres or more, you can let a big dog run like that, and they can, run down a deer that's leg shot or, hide back or something like that. So there are advantages to it. You just need to know what type of tracking you're going to do, what situations you're going to be in. Because I've got calls locally that if there's enough room and it's a leg shot deer, I'll call some friends up that have big runners and let them track it. And at the same time, if they get on small tracks where they're worried about getting off property, or they're going to have to be really controlling of their dog, they'll call me because I'm on lead.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing your location and fitting your tracking situations and the type of dog is very important.
Yeah, I think it's, we use certain dogs for certain things too in the law enforcement side of it, so that completely makes sense. So let's start back at the guy in New York. You said you got your first one from Florida?
No, Dad imported 3 from Poland.
From Poland?
He kept a female, I kept a female, and a gentleman in Florida kept a male.
Oh, okay, that's what I heard. So y'all got 2 females. Was there some type of agreement or contract on where you could not breed those, or they had to be spayed because they were females?
No, we actually made some contacts in Poland. For many years, we used them to help other people import dogs before we got the club started. But there was no requirements for them.
Mm-hmm.
They were, we learned a lot. And so early on, we did not realize that, I think the breeding for my dog that I had, my first one, the female, the sire was a show dog, and the dam was a working dog.
Mm-hmm.
Now she was a great tracker, but since then I've learned what the German club is, what the rules are, how they breeding standards, why they test, that kind of stuff, and I understand that that was not an acceptable dog to them because one half of the breeding was a show line and not a working line.
And that would not be allowed in the bloodline that you have today, correct?
That's not allowed in the club at all.
Okay.
All dogs that are used for breeding must be tested to the same standard. And if you go, as far back as you want to look in the pedigrees, all the dogs have passed the same test. And what that does is just ensures the likelihood of getting a good working dog.
Yes.
And so it's, and the Germans have a standard, but that standard is not, it has to be exactly this or exactly that. I've seen, shorter dogs that are thin. I've seen a little bit heavier dogs, a little bit taller. They have a range, but what they're looking for is the overall workability of the dog. And that has really opened my eyes to, what they're looking for, because when, we're talking about tests here in a minute, some of the things they test for, I didn't understand why we were testing for them, because really, what does it have to do with the nose? But the more and more I learned about the breed, the more I understood why you tested. And so, when you look at the standards and the puppies that are produced, they're looking to improve the breed with every breeding. And so every dog that's used for breeding must pass the same test.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that puts them on an even playing field too, correct?
Yeah. It's, I would say that you have, when I was in Germany for tests to become a judge, I got to see some dogs that didn't pass and some dogs that just were exceptional. And so what they do when the breeding program is they will look at a dog that's tested, and we'll go over that in just a minute, but they look at the overall dog, and then they'll look at the conformation, and they will look at, say, all right, this is a little bit bigger dog. Well, we don't need to breed it to a big dog. We need to breed it to a little dog. Or this dog has a little bit thinner undercoat, so we need to breed it with a dog that has a really thick coat. And this dog is, a little bit taller, so we're going to smaller. And, so they're looking at that. There's a breed warden, and I mean, they're basically geneticists. The way they look at these pedigrees and the test results, and then they say, you can breed this dog to that dog, and they're choosing or they're approving what dogs can be bred. That's a big difference from what we do here in the United States as a whole.
Yeah.
But they want to make sure that every breeding is at least the standard, or at least the acceptable working, if not bettering the breed with every breeding that you do. And that's our goal, to protect the dog and to make sure that good working sound dogs are produced.
So, all right, I want to talk about the test, but first I want to talk about how you were able to become a judge. Like, tell us the process, tell us what that required, and what that took for you to be able to do that.
Well, being the only American judge, there was no ability here to follow anybody or do anything. So I had to go to Germany and multiple trips. And what I had to do was follow a test, work with the judges that were there. And it's basically an apprenticeship. Mm-hmm. And so you give your opinion about how the track went, the different aspects of the test, and what you would score. And then the judges will say what they would have done, and they'll ask you questions back and forth. And, what were you, why did you think this, that? Well, this is the reason why we said this score. And so you do that multiple times, but each test you have to write a report, an in-depth report on one dog, how the handler worked, how the dog worked, what was their interactions, what you saw. So you do that through multiple tests. Mm-hmm. And then there is where you have to do it on a live real track. And so you have to do that twice. And once there has to be a track with a recovery, and then there has to be a track with a chase and recovery. And that can be tough. There's sometimes that judges spend, 2 years, maybe even 3 years trying to get on a track that there is a chase and a recovery, because, then not always is there another judge to go with you, or, it's a good shot and the animal runs, a couple of 100 yards, 1,000 yards, whatever, and it's dead. Well, that happens a lot. And so that chase is a hard thing to get. And the very first track I went on, we went, I don't know, probably somewhere along 5 kilometers, and ended up with a chase on a big boar and finished him off. And that was my very first attempt. And everybody looked at me like, you are so lucky. Because it just doesn't happen that way.
So explain the chase, and I just want to make sure I understand when you say the chase means the animal's jumped and goes to a secondary location where it passes away. What are we talking about?
All right. So in Germany, for those that have never been, the forest is very clean. It's not like our forest. Mm-hmm. And so we're tracking along, and we finally get to this little bottom, and it's thick. And we were after a big Kyler, which is a large boar. And the judges were like, release the dog. That he's in there. And so what the handler did is he stopped his dog, he unleashed his dog, and he told the dog to search through there. And so at that point, the dog's off leash searching, And he goes through this bottom, and sure enough, he kicked the hog out of there, the pig. And the chase was on. He ran around trying to get him bait up. And finally, the handler was able to put a finishing shot on the boar. And so that's what we mean by chase. It's the animal is wounded, and because they will, if there's blood, they track it. Even if you think it's just a grazing shot, they're going to track it until they are confident that the animal is going to recover, or, they just exhausted all possible means. They put that much effort into recovering game over there. And so yeah, you had to have the chase, and I got lucky on my very first attempt.
Now, how many? So, because when I went through my master trainer process for the law enforcement, I had to do the same thing you did. I had to acquire hours. I had to go under multiple master trainers just to get my trainer status. Then I had a 3-year wait period. So during that 3-year period, I had to run some schools, had to help certify a certain amount of dogs. And then once I got that done, I was able to acquire more hours before I could even test for the master trainer. So what kind of time period and what kind of process was that? Like, how long? Is there a certain amount of hours or a certain amount of trials you go to, or not trials, but certain amount of dogs you have to follow? Like, I have to do, I had to train 6 dogs from green, which means they don't know nothing, to certification level. So what was yours like during that?
So the first thing, you do have to have at least run a dog through the test. Mm-hmm. And I had run a 220s and a 40-hour track with my dog. So I met that criteria. Mm-hmm. Then I flew out to Portland to take it's basically an introduction to JGHV testing, which is the European Hunting Dog Association. Mm-hmm. I had to do that course. Then I went to Germany on 3 different trips. I had 3 different tests that I did, 3 or 4, where I wrote reports on 2 dogs per test. Mm-hmm. And I did that over 2 events. And then the third one was when I went back for the live hunt and to do my judging on that. So overall, it took me about 2.5 years to do it. Mm-hmm. But again, I got very lucky with my live chase, and that typically is the hardest thing that most judges have to go through.
Right. Yeah, I can understand that. So tell us about the test. Okay, you went through the judgeship. Now you're your judge. Now you're going to test a dog. You're going to test 2 dogs for the test process. So talk to us about that and tell us what's required for you to say, okay, I put my stamp of approval on this.
Okay. So the dog has 2 preliminary things that it has to do. The vorproofing is the preliminary test, is what we're going to talk about. But before they even do that, they have to show that they are not gun sensitive, which is, we go out to a large field, and you've got a person off to the side with a hunting rifle, a rifle of hunting caliber. Mm-hmm. And the handler takes their dog out, and when the dog is not paying attention to them, away from them, the 2 judges that are watching the dog will motion for the shooter to fire, and they'll fire in a safe manner, and they'll watch the dog. And what they're watching for is the dog's reaction. Does he cower and come back to the handler, mm-hmm. or does he, oh, yeah, there was a shot, and go back to work? If they show that they are scared of the gun, that right there ends all testing. That dog will never be bred. That dog will never. And that is a one chance. There's no second chance on that.
Oh, wow.
If the dog is gun sensitive, that is it. That is it. So dog is good. Most dogs will, my dog will turn around and go towards the shot because he knows that the shot means there's something fun to mess with. So So, some of them will come back to them. Hey, what was that? Can we go after it? But they're just looking for that dog. Do they cower down? Do they tuck tail? Do they come back to the handler looking for assurance? And as long as the dog does not do all that, they pass that.
So do you guys get to, like, for me, I have to press the same thing with our patrol side. But do you guys actually work that before the test?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
okay.
Yeah. That's done before the test, because that's, if there's no need to test if your dog can't get past.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what my thought. I was like, well, if I knew my dog was going to cower, I wouldn't even go test, because there's no sense in it.
Right. Well, there's some that show up that, and there's even if they, it's mild or fine, there's a score like a 4 or a 6 or a 2 and, or 0. And as long as it's 4 or higher, it meets the breeding standard. 6 is ideal. Mm-hmm. And so that breed warden that I spoke of earlier, he can look at all those numbers and use that to judge which dogs can be used for breeding and, which ones should be bred to who.
Right.
So we get through with the gun sensitivity, and the next thing that the dog has to show is that are they scent loud or sight loud? And a Bavarian can be both. Most of them are sight loud, meaning when they see the animal, they'll bark at them. Mm-hmm. And so we usually use a boar, a wild boar, something like that, in an enclosed area. And we'll just work the dog through it. And when they see it, they'll start barking. As long as they do that and don't run from the animal, they're good. They're good on that portion. And so those are the two things before the actual test. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
And both of those are so barking on the track or barking at sight, scent and sight, is allowed.
Yes, both are allowed.
Okay.
And I prefer, because of my tracking style and where I track, I prefer the silent, because we're behind a lot of subdivisions and places like that. You've got these undeveloped tracts of land that people are hunting. And the last thing that I want to do is draw attention to myself. So I prefer the quieter dog until we get to the animal.
Yep.
And so we've done that. So now we're going to actually start the test. And there's always 3 judges. And for us here in the United States, that means bringing in judges. I have a test the end of February next year, and I'm bringing in 2 judges to help myself with the actual tracking. And then I'm bringing in a breed warden to do a confirmation exam on all the dogs. So 3 judges. And so we start out, there's a 30 by 30 meter area. And the dog has 10 minutes to get out of that box. And in that box is a hit mark with a little bit of blood, hair, bone, whatever. And so what the handler does is works his dog in there, and you're supposed to indicate the hit spot. And then once you do that, you mark and you start going out. But if you don't get out of that box in 10 minutes, your track is over.
So, okay, good. Okay, yeah. I want to ask a question. Sorry, I got so many questions. This is just intriguing. So, how do you call a hit? Like, how do you say, okay, right here's where it started? Is that because of the blood sight, or is that the behavior change in the dog? Like, how do you determine, okay, this is the hit location? As if I'm testing.
Okay. Well, usually they'll take a stick and, like a bullet track in the ground. Mm-hmm. So there'll be a little bit of bone, a little bit of they'll just take a stick, kind of twist the ground like the animal took off at that point, and they'll have a track for the bullet track. And so you'll see some indication, but you have to work your dog around there to find that. And a lot of times as you're working through, if you'll pay attention to your dog will tell you which way the track goes off. Because like when the judges come up and you're starting the track, they'll say, all right, we came up here. They'll tell a story. Hey, the deer was, or the animal was standing down there and I shot, but it was so brushy, I didn't see which way it went. And so that's how they're going to start you. And you go in there and you do your search. And once you find it, you just say hit site, and you go on, you just keep tracking. Mm-hmm. And the judges will mark, if it's correct or not. But once your dog starts working out, and like I said, well, as you're working that, a lot of times you'll pay attention. The dog will actually pick up the trail and want to work out the box. So if you want the full points, you find the hit site. It's not required.
I got
you. You just have to get out of that box on the right track in that 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Yep.
So the track itself is 1,000 meters, and the first 400 meters are scent, shoes, and blood. The next 500 meters are scent, shoes only, and the last 100 is scent, shoes, and blood. There will be 2 turns on the track with, towards the end in that last 100 meters, you'll have a wound bed. And so, you're allowed 2 callbacks to continue. So once you get more than about 100 meters away from the line, the judges will determine, is the dog kind of working parallel? So we're going to give them a little leniency to see if they come back, or is the dog working just straight away? He's picked something up, and if we don't stop him, he's going to be out of the county. So as long as you only get 2 callbacks, you can continue. Mm-hmm. Once you get your 3rd callback, the track is over with, and you're done. So so no callbacks is you can get top scores if you get 1 callback. Each time you get a callback, your score, the highest points you can get is reduced. So you get through the track, and the dog finds the animal. We always have an animal at the end of the track. In Germany, it could be a boar, it could be a roe deer, could be a red hind or something like that. But there's always an animal at the end. So the next part of the test is you're going to put the dog in a down stay with the animal, and it's going to be tied to a tree with a lead, whatever. But the dog has to be able to reach the animal. And what that simulates is in, years past, what they did with the dogs is they would leave them on the mountain with their animal, go down and get help and come back. And the dog's job was to protect that animal from poachers or, predators of some sort. So what we're doing is simulating that to make sure that the dog doesn't go over and chew on the animal. So they're in a downstay for 10 minutes, and they have to stay there with the animal for that 10 minutes. When that 10 minutes is up, one of the judges, somebody that hasn't been around the dog or something like that, will walk up towards the dog and the animal, and they will attempt to take the animal. Due to politics, we cannot call it guarding anymore, which is what the dog is actually doing.
Right.
But what we're doing is we're looking to see if the dog will protect the animal. And so if they stand up and they start growling and barking, that's top marks. If they sit there and just watch you with their eyes and, they're not cowering away, but they're really paying you good attention, then, that's the next marks down. If they cower away and don't even attempt to do anything with you taking the animals, that's a fail.
I got you. And you and I had talked a while back when we were talking about the Bavarian hound that we use, and we had talked about some of that, I don't want to say shyness, but when you and I talked, and you started explaining this behavior and what the dog was used for, that would make complete sense why the dogs that we use are more of a one-person dog.
They are very much a one-person dog. They get, if you've got a family, and the dogs are always part of the family, but they're always bonded most to one person.
Right.
And they're reserved with strangers, a little aloof, but not supposed to shy away. Not completely cower and go away. They're supposed to kind of be standoffish.
Right.
But that's just part of their nature.
And that standoffish is the perfect definition of what I've seen. It's not shyness. It's not. It's definitely not timidness. It's a standoff, and you're saying that, and that makes perfect sense to what I've seen with my interaction with them.
Yeah.
So perfect. I mean that explains so much. And while we're on the topic of the Hano, can you tell me the difference in a Hano and the Bavarian, and what is the difference in?
Yeah. The difference in Heath really is the Bavarians look very similar. It's just size. And the reason they look similar is that the Hanoverians were used as one of the foundation breeds when the Bavarians were developed in the early 1900s. The club itself was founded in 1912 in Germany, and so it's a little over 110 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's it's more or less size. The Hanos were used. Hanos were used for big running, and once the feudal system, the kings and lords and stuff that system went away and the land started being broke up, they needed more tracking dogs, and so they looked for a lighter dog but wanted the nose. So the Hano had the nose, and then they bred them with the Bracken dogs of Germany and developed this lighter boned, more agile breed for tracking.
And what was the Bracken dog? I haven't heard that. I mean, I've heard that maybe one or two times over my 30 years of fooling with dogs.
Yeah, Bracken, it's hard to describe. Because they're not around anymore, the theory is that they were more of kind of a German type cur dog, a farm dog that was around. Not a lot of history on them per se, because they're no longer around. But in general, it was kind of the farm country dog is what best I can tell.
I got you. Yeah, I can see that. So you've got the test. The dog passed. Go ahead. Are you still at more on the test?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot more to the test.
All right. Well, tell us.
All right. So we did the downstay with the animal. Then, and this is the part that took me the longest to grasp. Why? Is they will actually take the dog and they want to see the dog walking on lead. How do they heel? And there's no talking to the dog. There's no nothing. So you walk in and out around trees, and then they'll bring you back and they'll tell you to release the dog, and they'll want the recall. And so I was like, why is this part of the official test when you're looking for a tracking dog? And so it was finally explained to me that if they don't test for the brain of the dog, also the trainability, then all you end up with is a big running dog with a nose that it can't be trained. And so they're looking for a dog that's trainable also. So that's part of their test is that, how is the dog recall good? Does he heel good? Does he mind good? Because that's showing that dog is trainable.
You got some sense about him. Yeah.
Right. 'Cause if not, a lot of your listeners, red bones, blue tick, stuff like that. You think about a hard-headed hound that's, a big runner with a nose on them. That's what a lot of people have. And so if you want that dog that's obedient, you've got to have something that's trainable. And that's what they were looking for. And then the last part of the test is a downstay to the gunshot, because a lot of these dogs, the way they're used in Germany is by the forester. And so he's out on a stalk and he sees an animal. He puts the dog in a downstay and leaves the dog and goes and does the hunt, and he fires the shot. And what the last thing you want is the dog running in when the animal may not be quite dead yet, running them off, or if they're wounded, chasing them. So the dog has to stay down for 10 minutes when the shot is with you out of sight. So you put the dog down, stay, you go out of sight, fire the rifle, the dog stays in a down stay for 10 minutes, you come back, and at that point, the test is complete.
And you pass it. So how many, let's say that I got through 3/4 of the test and my dog, okay, let's say my dog broke on the, with the person, I know you said it failed. How many opportunities do I get, or is it a one-time and done?
The only thing that's a one-time and done is the gun sensitivity.
The first
everything
one.
Else, right. Yeah. Everything else can be taken. I believe they give 3 shots.
Is there a period of time for the 3 shots?
I mean, the 3 shots mean 3 opportunities to take it. Overall, I've never come across that because they've always already passed. The only thing that can be done, so you go through the whole test, and the downstay to the shot, when the hunter walks away and makes the shot, if the dog gets up, that portion of the test can be retaken within 1 year, within the calendar year.
Just the downstay, that's it.
Just the downstay.
Yep.
And if that portion, if they pass that portion, then they're good. That everything else counts, all the other scores for the other portion of the test. That's the only part individually that can be retaken. Any other portion of it that fails, you have to take the whole test over again.
Well, yeah, ours is similar. You get 3 chances. It's over a 30-day period. If you failed certification today, you could try again tomorrow. And if you fail tomorrow, then you've got 30 days to go back and do your training, whatever it is. And then if you don't pass it then you're just not in service. You're done. So that it's very similar with some of the setup over it. Your test is a little different, but it in a lot of ways it's got a lot of the same parts to it.
Yeah, and so like for certification, so here in the United States, you don't have to have a certified dog to track. COVID hit. We haven't had judges over here. I haven't been able to test my young dog. He's 3, but I've been tracking with him. I tracked all season with him last year. In Germany, you have to be certified. You have to be a certified tracker. You have to have a certified dog to go out and track for others.
Is theirs the same? Like, so in the law enforcement side, their PH, they do the PH1 titles and stuff. They won't even put a dog in service till 3 on my end. Does that sound similar to yours, or will they put a dog in service earlier if it does pass that test?
They can put it in service earlier. I tested a dog at 8 months old. He ended up failing.
Wow.
And it was a sad situation because he had a lot of people. It was a forester. He had a lot of people there. He had the regional forester there to watch him, all this other stuff, and his dog failed. But I have seen some dogs at that 1 year mark that passed with no problem at all. And once those dogs are done through the test, they're certified for the preliminary. Now, their certification is preliminary, plus they have to do the natural test, which is on a live track, and that's their full certification.
And is this a one-time certification, or is this yearly, or is there a time frame?
No, it's a one-time certification.
I got you.
And so they because again, they're looking for that track, and you may get the calls, and that's what that preliminary test allows you to take some calls and take some tracks, but you may not always be able to have a judge available to go with you. And so until you have that judge go with you that can do the evaluation on the natural track, you're not fully qualified.
I got you. Yeah. But again, you can, like I said, you can still track. And I mean, the United States, and I'm not up to date with your world and with what y'all do, but I mean, it makes sense that you can track, and the only thing you couldn't do, not being certified, would be breed, correct?
The full, so here in the United States, I'm the only judge. And we've got people from Oklahoma, Arizona, Michigan, New York, all over the place. There's only about 35 of us in the club. We've been slowly growing, again, just trying to make sure that we do right by the breed. So it's hard for me. I can't go to these locations during hunting season and be with these guys for a track to do the natural test. So Germany has allowed us to do the preliminary test as a breed qualifier. And as long as as long as the dog meets the confirmation, it passes the Vorprüfen, the preliminary test, it meets all the breed standards there, then they will allow us to use the dog for breeding.
So when you decide to make a cross, because I know that we had talked about there being like a panel or you said maybe the breed master, is that what you called him?
The breed warden will say, we've got to, see, we don't breed unless we have enough members that want a dog. So we're not breeding and producing pups to sell them. We're breeding to produce pups to meet a need.
Correct.
And so we've got enough guys that want puppies. We'll let the breed warden know. What he'll do is he'll look at the breedings that we've had. He'll look at the dogs that we have that are certified, and he'll say, all right, these are the crosses that will work and won't produce too much of one bloodline to interfere with what you already have. Because so even in Germany, they're considered a rare breed. As far as the club goes, they're only producing a little over 100 pups a year. So they have to be very careful not to produce too many pups with one bloodline to keep the genetics good.
Yeah. Well, so what? I guess another question I would have is, okay, so you don't breed unless there's a need. And I'm completely think that is a quality that we should all be instilling in our breeding program. We shouldn't be breeding just to be breeding. For me, what happens if let's say that there's 35 members here in the stateside, and you only have, everybody got 35 dogs or whatever. What happens when they get too old and then you can't produce one for you? Or is that a thing that can happen, or is that not going to happen because the variety of the ages?
Well, the good thing is being that we are part of the German club. We are an official group of the German club. If we need dogs, like my older male that I have now, he was imported from Germany. We always have that option that we can import different bloodlines. We have bloodlines from Slovakia, Austria, Germany. I think we've got Norway. So we have a variety of bloodlines available to us. And, our biggest hurdle has been COVID the last couple of years. We've been needing to test so that we can get some of these dogs certified. I've got 18 dogs that we're going to test in February. And when we do that, we should be set for quite a few years. It's more finding people that are willing to accept the standards that we have set forward, or not, I won't say us, it's the standards that the German club has set forth for us, and not doing breeding when they're not supposed to, testing like they're supposed to, understanding that if there's health issues, you don't breed, whatever. But, that is the hardest thing, because this is a new breed to the country, relative, 25 years or so. And there are some out there that are breeding for the money because they know that they can get a good price on them, and they're not testing. They're not health checks. They're just trying to get as many pups out there as they can to make the money. And again, that's not where we're at. We're trying to improve the breed. So finding the right people to understand that want to join the club has been our biggest struggle. And the fact that some people want dogs now And I can't guarantee that. We've had some guys that join the club and they get a dog within 6 months, and we've had some guys that took them 3 or 4 years to get a dog. It's just, finding those right people that want to work with us to improve the breed. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think if it was me, I'd be prepared to wait to get the best possible prospect I could get if it was me. But again, I completely understand what you're saying, because the law enforcement field is getting those with a Hano, and I'm not saying that there's not the Bavarian out there, because there probably are, but some of the ones that I've seen do not fit the bill for us. So I can say those are guarantee those ones that are not been tested and vetted like the ones you guys are doing.
He's very much so. I mean, there are, over the years, I've seen guys, 1 male, 2 females, and they're producing pups just as fast as they can produce them and sell them, because it's the new hottest thing out there and everybody wants one. They're not testing for health. They're not testing for the hips. They're not saying anything if they have epilepsy. There's potentially one producing now that has Addison's disease.
Wow.
And so they're not telling anybody this, and they're line breeding. They're producing all these pups. Well, for the longest time there was no pedigrees for them, and now they're into the UKC, and I think AKC may be accepting them now also.
Mm-hmm.
But, you got one, I got one. We have no idea what the bloodlines are, 2 or 3, breedings down, and come to find out they're related. And so, that's the important part of being part of the group, being part of the breeding program, is we've got a breed warden that can look at all this. Just an example, we had one of our guys found what appeared to be a very good, well-bred dog in Slovakia. And he was thinking about importing. So we reached out to the breed warden in Germany, and he reached out to his counterpart, and the guy looked at the pedigree and went, "Nope." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "The dog they use for this breeding is right here laying at my lap." He says, "And I haven't used him for breeding." People can make slick websites, and you don't have the connections and the understanding. There's no guarantee what you're getting. And so this person was trying to sell a litter of pups that were completely falsified. And that has happened over and over, and there's no telling what those breedings are. And, some of those dogs have made it over here, and they're in that gene pool was used for breeding. And so, that's always going to occur. There's money in everything, and if people think they can make $1, they're going to go after it. Again, we're trying to better the dog. I mean, in Germany, for the breeding program, you're not allowed to breed for hips if it has to be an A and an A or an A and a B hip, never a B and a B or less. And the reason being is around the fall of the Soviet Union, when the Eastern Bloc fell, all of a sudden you had all these dogs from East Germany that were, "Oh, hey, let's breed. Y'all got dogs, and let's mix the genetics up, because we've been concentrated for so long." Well, the problem is that East Germany had hip dysplasia, and it became a problem. And so the German club said, "No, here's how strict we're going to be," and they had more or less wipe out hip dysplasia in the breed just by being that strict. And if you don't have those standards and people are just breeding to make money, then, you're going to have these issues eventually.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I really like the process. I like the testing. I wish that was, you're not going to get all the houndsmen behind that for whatever reasons, but I understand the importance of it because of the law enforcement side. And, if my dog can't meet a set of standards, then I can't use him. I mean, I just can't use him. And we don't breed on the law enforcement side. We don't breed our own dogs, really. We're importing most of the time. And when we import, we're usually getting third or fourth pick. We're not getting the first or second pick because that's what the Europeans pick those out and keep them for themselves. But when we're getting dogs from those first picks, second picks, we get pretty good, solid dogs. So I completely understand it. Like I am a proponent of it. I should do better myself after listening to, what you're saying. So just to make sure that I understand. So if you decide to breed in the United States, you have to go through the breed warden in Germany.
That's correct.
Okay. Yep.
We let them know that we've got enough members that we want to breed. He looks at what dogs we have that are tested and looks at the bloodlines, looks at the test scores, looks at the confirmations, looks at the inbreed coefficient, looks at the genetics, and says, you know what, these two breedings look the best. Mm-hmm. And at that point, and so, one other thing about the breeding, we're never allowed. You're only allowed to breed an animal twice, a dog twice, and you're never allowed to breed more than one time to the same pairing. And that's again to keep because the gene pool is so small, has to make sure that no one gene gets out there too much. If it's deemed, and if everything's so perfect and the dogs are like super, the breed warden can approve a third breeding, but that's a rarity.
So, all right, let's go back to the. You're never crossing the same cross twice. I get that. And if you breed male A to female B and female C, is that something? Do they like to get that? Will they line breed, or they completely outcross each time? With what you're telling me, sounds like outcrossing.
It's an outcross each time.
So how do they combat the diversity that they get?
That's the great part. They're not looking for a real tight standard. Mm-hmm. You've got this range. They're looking for the overall workability of the dog. They're looking for the overall dog, not a set standard that it has to be, 1 inch height, here or there, or it has to be this on weight, or, exactly the nose has to be this, or the ears can't go past, here, or they're looking for a range. And so what happens is you get that diversity, but every one of those dogs has the same working ability.
Right. No, I mean, I get it. I just, in my mind, I'm trying to, play things out how I see them, which is, like I said, it's different. It's a different view. It's a strong foundation that they have maintained for hundreds of years, 100 years,
110 years, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, that's a really good thing. I just, listening to this just reiterates how I feel, even though I don't live by that code, which is a bad thing to say, but I understand it and see the need and the purpose for it. Anything else you want to tell us about the hound itself? Anything that we've left out or the listeners may find as interesting, or just in general?
In general, I think a lot of people look at them and they look at the temperament and they say, hey, I want one of those dogs as a pet. They look so cool and all that kind of stuff. I'll say they make a great pet, but then at the same time, I'll say they make a terrible pet. And the reason I say that is if you just have them as a pet, they're going to go crazy. They're going to destroy things. They're going to drive you insane with their energy. They are a working dog.
Yep.
They need a job. They need something to stimulate their brain, and that's working. And so, yes, my dogs are in the house. My dogs, when I go to work, they go in the kennel. If it's too hot, they're in the house on their comfy beds. But when it comes to work, they're all work and all business. And so, just don't think you're going to get one of these dogs and keep it in the house and keep it as a pet because it's a cool thing, because they will destroy things. I can't tell you how many times I have had to fill holes in because of mouse. They dug holes in the pasture chasing a mole or a lizard or, what they want something to do. So, you have to work them. Second of all, I would say, if you're thinking about a Bavarian and you like what you hear, you think that it's something you can stand by, reach out to me. I mean, we have a Facebook page. Since we're so far scattered across the country, most of our guys just contact each other on Facebook. We have certain areas that have concentrated groups. We'll try to get you with one of those guys. If you want to see the dogs work, talk to somebody, we can put you in touch with that. We do membership in November. And, we would love to have more people that want to protect the breed. We would rather you come to us and learn about the breed and help us to, keep the diversity, keep the genetics strong here in the United States, because we can't do it with a small number like this. We've got to have more members, but we're not going to just let somebody have one of these dogs that, I'm going to, once I get it, I'm going to do what I want to do. No, that's not the person we're looking for. We're looking for the person that understands what our goal is, and that's to protect and better the breed.
Yep. You said something there that I wanted to ask about. How can they reach out to you? Did I miss your Facebook page name so they can look at it?
It's KBGS or Group North America, KBGS Group North America.
Mm-hmm.
And they can also reach out to me at Hillock Kennels on Facebook. And they can go through either one of those. So it's Club for Berkshire Gewehr Schweisshund is the German name, and my German friends will probably say you just butchered that. But if you'll look up KBGS, and you'll start finding us, or if you'll find me on Hillock Kennels, I can point you the right way.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, the guys listening, if you're interested in blood tracking, reach out to Ken. And like I said, we use the Hanos in what we do, and I mean, I see the qualities of what you're saying, and I can't even tell you. Well, I do know where it come from. I won't say it come from your state, but I mean, there's so many similarities from what you're saying and what I see in the dog that we're using. You've actually taught me a few things in the behavioral characteristics that I have seen in this dog. So I'm glad that you were able to come on and talk to us and teach us about the Bavarian. Deer hunting again is, and I mean, I'm assuming that's what you use it for the most, correct?
We have guys that track bear and moose and elk, hog. I mean, so they're gritty enough that they'll take on just about anything. But mostly whitetail deer.
Yeah. So I mean, that industry's huge, and I know, like I said, I see a lot of people getting into the blood tracking and the antler shed antler searching. So I mean, this is great, Ken. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about this and tell us about the testing process. And, the breed master is very interesting to me and how that works. And I wish that us as Americans, because I see it when we're testing dogs in Europe, and I see the strict rules and regulations that they follow when it comes to the hound or dog world, that we are very lax. And I feel like if we would tighten up on some of the things we do, we would be producing a better quality hound.
I can agree.
Yep. So, anything else you want to touch on, talk about?
No, Heath, that's all. I appreciate you having me on and let me talk about something that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you on. And Ken, at the end of every show, we have a little saying. It's thank you for helping us find a way to teach, train, and learn.